Well, good morning. Welcome to Chi Talks. I'm Javi,
And I'm Nona.
and welcome to the place where it's all about the energy. And if everything is made of energy, then we have a lot to discuss. So let's get started.
We have a very great show here today ready for you. We have our very good friends, Lindsey and Erik from the Ozark Integral.
From Ozark Integrative Medicine.
And you want to tell us a little bit about?
Okay, so Erik's bio and Lindsey's bio here. Erik Hardin, LAC. Is that how you say that? LAC?
Yeah.
LAC is a 2008 graduate of the Texas College of Traditional Chinese Medicine, holds a master's degree in acupuncture and Oriental medicine, and he's a state licensed and nationally certified in Oriental medicine through the National Certification Commission for Acupuncture and Oriental Medicine. And Lindsey is a 2008 graduate of the Natural Epicurean Academy of Culinary Arts in Austin, Texas. Lindsey teaches cooking classes, eating local, organic, and sustainable foods, and is a personal chef. She runs the office, and she's the biggest cheerleader. When you come into the clinic, it does. And I just want to remind listeners that also we have a mutual teacher, Dr. Yang, and Erik is a certified Qigong instructor.
Yeah.
Under Dr. Yang, and Taiji certification.
Yeah.
Yeah, excellent.
Yeah.
So we got a lot to talk about. Thanks for joining us today. Where are we going to get started?
Let's get started with breathing.
Oh, okay, great idea. So let's take a second and let's try to find that place of stillness, that place of emptiness we usually do at the beginning of the show, just to kind of unwind, relax, settle. You can do this sitting, standing, laying down, wherever you are. Bring your attention to your abdomen and feel the abdomen move, expand, we say, on the inhale. So go ahead and take a deep breath, inhale. And naturally release it, let it out, exhale. Can resemble a sigh as well. On your own, take a deep breath, inhale again. Feel the abdomen expand, bring your attention to your abdomen. Exhale naturally. You might feel yourself yawn, want to yawn. It's nice, it's good. And let's do one more. 3 is the lucky number. And just try to feel the smallest of shifts in relaxation, in ease, in a release of stress or tension. And let that come over the whole body. Let that come over your whole being. If you have your eyes closed, you can open your eyes now and bring that sense of relaxation, stillness, emptiness into the outer world as you open up your eyes and your ears and your senses to the world. And I feel better. How about you guys?
Feeling good.
No, feeling good.
All right.
That's good after all the running around.
This morning I had a little bit of running around for us. So you know how that goes. Just a few breaths makes such a big difference though.
Well, let's get started on how you guys got introduced to, let's just say, Eastern thought, Eastern practices. What do you say?
So I think my introduction was probably earlier than Lindsey's. I think your introduction was through me.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
I consider you my teacher. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, my father was a Western medical doctor. He was a dermatologist, and he kind of took it upon himself to educate me about anatomy and physiology and different medical things. He would discuss his work with me when I was a kid. Went to a crappy public school in Arkansas, so needed a little help. And my mother studied Japanese Okinawan karate, and she's a 5th degree black belt. So she studied that for decades. And so when I was a hyperactive child, when I was 5 years old, she would basically hold me down and force me to meditate. And so my exposure to kind of Eastern thought was really early. I remember them, both of my parents talking about Qi when I was a little kid. And so it's just been a really kind of natural path for me.
Lindsey?
So I remember, Erik being into it whenever we first started dating, and I went to a couple of classes with Myelin at the Rhodes College in Memphis, Tennessee. He was doing some YMAA seminars there. And then Dr. Yang came to town one time. So, of course, we all packed up and we went over to Memphis to go see that. And I was probably like 19 or 20. And I remember sitting there in the classroom and, everyone was like really paying attention. And I remember like really wanting to pay attention. And I couldn't understand Dr. Yang. I can understand him now, but I couldn't understand his accent. And I felt like I was in like an advanced algebra class. Like I was super lost. And so coming into that, like how far I've come. So whenever we do an introductory class, I remember that. So I think about people, how it must feel like, what? Like, but the more you listen and the more you peck away at it, the more that it starts to make sense. So that was kind of my first introduction to that. And then I just started attending classes. I think it probably took me about 3 years of attending classes with Erik before I really started to feel it and feel, I was always comfortable and I always enjoyed it, but to really kind of sink in, for me to feel, kind of confident to practice on my own more. And so it does take a while. But yeah, I've just been in it and paying attention, for, I guess, almost 20 years now. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you guys. I forget all this. The Western, the Western influence, and then also your mother, whom I've met doing the karate as well. And you did, so I thought the macrobiotics.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
thought that was you started studying that as a result of Qigong?
Kind of. So Erik started TCM school, the traditional Chinese medicine school, and I found out I kind of had a talent and a passion for cooking, but I knew that I wasn't going to be able to cook like, typical American food. I wanted to cook, healthy food. And then of course, healthy food is really kind of a generic term. So there was like a free class at the school I attended, and I attended that free class, and they were talking about 5-element theory and food energetics and food as medicine. And there was a lot of overlapping of that, the TCM philosophy. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is perfect. And so I signed up basically right away. I signed up to attend that program. It was a 4-year program. So Erik and I, when you read our bios, said, 2008 graduate. Yeah, for both of us. Okay. My program was about 4 years long as well.
And I just want to remind listeners actually that Lindsey and Erik can come to California and volunteer their time, and Lindsey and Erik cook the meals. Gosh, 3 meals a day for 6 weeks as Dr. Yang holds his summer seminars. So we've spent a lot of time together in that space, made a lot of memories, and if any of the friends are out there listening, we want to say hi.
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 Yeah, it's a
Hope you
special,
begin
it's a
soon.
definitely a special time in our lives.
You mentioned the word health, Lindsay, and I think that's a really great place to start because there's so much out there in the world that people have to sift through to understand and try to connect to their own well-being and health. How would you two describe, or what's your perspective on what that is? What is health, wellness?
Do you have something immediately? I've got an idea.
Go ahead, I'll chime in.
So I've, Erik has been teaching, and this is our 10-year, this year is our 10-year anniversary and
Yeah.
practice. And so, we've evolved over the years. And I feel like for me, one thing that I've noticed that, it's, the definition of health and wellness is different depending on people's, background and culture and where they are at their life. So I've noticed that we tend to take a lot of people, kind of that first step. They walk into our clinic. A lot of people are at square one, which is totally fine. And so we try to focus on connection to community, connection to their bodies, connection to their food, and just kind of leading them into, for it being okay to have that connection and start self-reflection going into their health, and just kind of reorganizing it, rethinking it. We have a very gentle approach to health. And then the second part I would say is practice. People come in and they're like, do you have the magic needle? Do you have the answer? What is the one supplement I can take that's going to fix this? Just kind of that mentality. And we're like, oh, chill out, slow down. It's going to take some time. It's going to take some practice. And one thing that I really like, I'll let Erik take over on this part, is he kind of uses a metaphor of gardening with people's health and their gut health and, and where to start. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, when we live in a fast food culture, right? Everybody wants instant gratification, or many people do in a lot of situations, because we're suffering and it's uncomfortable to suffer. So sometimes I tell people, if you want a fast result, like you want your flowers to bloom, you can't just dump more fertilizer in the garden. It doesn't work like that. You have to build the soil slowly over time. Yeah. So answering your original question, just from a basic, kind of philosophical standpoint, health to me just means, our environment changes. It's summer now, it's winter later, it's there's war now, there's peace now, whatever. Your external environment changes. And then your internal environment changes too. Sometimes your thoughts, you start to ruminate, or sometimes you feel at peace, or sometimes you feel anxious, or all of these things. And so what happens on the outside, what happens on the inside, it can take you further away from your center, or it can bring you closer to your center. It can take you further away from homeostasis, or it can bring you closer to that homeostasis. So to me, health is not that you don't experience those kind of fluctuations, but how efficiently can you return to your center? And everybody's capacity for that is different. But in many ways, it can be improved, or it can be trained in such a way that you can make it more efficient.
Let's talk about some of the ways that you help people improve the way in which that process of returning to homeostasis does become more efficient.
Yeah, I mean, that's $1 million question, right? I think the first step is recognition, right? Because when we're suffering, you just want to make it stop, right? When you're suffering, when you feel uncomfortable, you just want to make it stop, and your mind kind of goes there. Your mind kind of goes into, take a painkiller, make it go away, you know, get some chiropractic, get an adjustment, whatever, get some needles and make the suffering go away. And the opposite is true too. When you're happy, when you feel good, like you want to maintain that feeling always, you never want it to stop. And then when you have an unpleasant sensation, you just want it to stop immediately. But in both cases, you're not really feeling what's happening, you're thinking. And it's difficult for people to learn, but it's really worth investing in the pain. The pain is trying to tell you something. The discomfort is trying to tell you something. So I try, in many cases, the first step is just kind of introducing people to their own pain.
I love that. I just want to remind listeners, you got to tune to KMUD, and this is Chi Talks with Javi and Nona. Our guests today are Lindsey and Erik from Bentonville, Arkansas, who run the Ozark Integrative Medicine Clinic. And they both provide a collaborative experience of wellness to help people with, to help introduce people to their pain and resolve suffering.
Wow, though, that's such a huge thing. In
Yeah.
itself, we could spend like a whole show on pain.
Yeah.
I think like my human mental mind goes, oh no, why would I want to do that? It's like that's such a without the right tools, I think that's a scary thing to do. And obviously, Erik, maybe you and Lindsey have experience with people and what that process is like. What do you find as far as that process and what is needed to support someone to go through that process of getting to know their own pain?
Yeah, it's I mean, it's highly individual. You know, you have to try to meet people where they are and help them to develop a strategy that is going to work for them. So some people, you can just mention it and a light bulb clicks, you know, and they're able to kind of go there. Other people, if you can reassure them and, you know, kind of hold space for them and let them know that you're gonna, you know, that you're gonna be there to help them through it, then they're willing to go through it. And then others, you know, they're not ready. They're not ready to do it. Yeah. So you have to kind of gently probe and see if, you know, you can have the capacity to help to introduce them to that.
Well, did you want to say something, Lindsey?
Oh, go ahead, Javi.
Oh, there's just some things that you guys mentioned that are really great. I love the fact that when you talked about health and wellness, the first thing you said was community, and that was a surprise that you said that, and I really appreciate that, because that's something that I've come to learn to appreciate in terms of health and wellness, and also coming back to center and efficiently coming back to center as the body maintaining and reaching homeostasis, and for health and wellness. That just brings me to Tai Chi practice.
I think for me, the word connection that you used really stood out.
Practice.
And I think it comes back to too, when we practice Qigong, we are connecting with ourselves in various ways or different layers, and that it's that reconnection to some body parts that we might have disconnected from somewhere along the path of life, that brings about wellness, that allows for the energy to flow.
Right.
And so, yeah, it's really connection is health, seems to be a big message here. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I feel our culture, just our American culture, strongly compels us to ignore those kind of sensations. You know, If you have a headache, take a painkiller, get back to work. If you're tired, drink some coffee, drink some caffeine, Red Bull, whatever, get back to work. You know, we are strongly sort of conditioned to ignore those sensations, you know.
I'd like to hear, and you don't have to get into, like, you know, personal information, but just maybe a story or a case that kind of sticks out to you in terms of success, and someone who maybe they were into it and they were like, I'm all in, or someone who you had to probe, but eventually took the time, they took the care and took your advice, and maybe there was cooking, and Lindsey was involved, and there was acupuncture and qigong and movement that was involved, but some case that maybe sticks out to you, or that you remember, that what components came
I
together?
can think of, like, there's like all these, you know, people popping up in my mind, and I'll give Erik a chance to think if he's got somebody in mind.
I think I know who you're thinking of.
Ooh.
So yeah, that's been, you know, it's those kind of things, super intrinsically rewarding, and people sometimes ask me and us, like, I don't know, not necessarily like, why do you do it, or kind of like, what's your mission? You know, we live in a city, it's very like corporate minded, so they're always trying to kind of figure us out, like, oh, what's your business model, and we're like, we're just building a healthy community because because we like it. Then we get to live in a healthy community, we get to you know, build our circle and build our community and build connections, and watch people grow. You know, it doesn't have anything to do with our ego, but we are serving ourselves by building connections and building community. And, you know, it's really nice. And that is something that's a little bit hard for some people to wrap their head around. But yeah, we've met a lot of people here. And I've seen people from every walk of life too. I've had a couple in one of my classes where he came into the clinic. When he came into the clinic, he you know, I gave him the paperwork, and he was like, I didn't bring my glasses. I'm like, okay. And he was like, I said, well, I can read, or no, he said, I don't have a pen. I said, well, okay, well, I have a pen. I said, I don't have my glasses. And he just remained in this closed posture. I was like, he is not taking this paperwork. And I said, well, do you want me to read the questions for you? And I did. I wrote down what he said, and then he made his X. And I realized later, like, he couldn't read or write. And him and his wife ended up in a class of mine, and they did phenomenal. They did phenomenal. And they were, you know, from a small little town, and, you know, they didn't have a lot of education and whatnot, but they made the connection. I ran into them at the farmer's market. I mean, it was just really beautiful how they evolved. And then I've also seen people, you know, who were well educated, very wealthy, very networked. I won't say connected, I'll say networked, and walk out and say, I'm not doing this, you know, because we weren't treating them the way that they were used to, people telling them what they wanted to hear. And, you know, sometimes we got to tell people stuff that they don't really want to hear, but they need to hear. And do you have a story in mind? That's probably not who you were thinking of.
No, that's totally who I was
thinking
really?
of.
Yeah, I knew who you were thinking of. Yeah.
That's really powerful.
Yeah, we have a lot of stories. Yeah.
I'm just trying to imagine, like, stepping into a place like that, and just how intimidating that must be, and how probably that's a constant experience for someone like that who can't read or write. And how amazing that sounds.
Just willingness.
That's all it is. Yeah, just willingness, the ability to put a question mark there, at least.
So I also want to just briefly, I know, Lindsey, you mentioned that this gentleman was in your class. I don't think we've mentioned the whole range of services that you and Erik provide. You want to give a little snippet into, so our listeners get an understanding of what it is how you serve your community?
Sure. So we, in the pandemic time, I had to shift. So I was teaching more cooking classes, and during the pandemic, had to shift. And so I actually expanded my personal chef work and opened it up to more clients, rented a commercial kitchen, and started doing plant-based farm-to-table meals for the community. And the first run that I did attach it to some lessons. And like the first lesson, the whole theme for the lessons were connections. So we went to connection to your body and food, connection to your environment and the impact of that, and the connection to community with each lesson. So I fed them food. I told them where their food came from. I told them, the food energetics, the effect I had hoped, that the food would have for them, and then just let them eat, let them connect. And it was different because it was, like a pandemic project, but I'm still running that program. I haven't stepped into in-person cooking classes again yet, but we do education on that. Is what the part that I do, and then Erik does a whole lot of stuff.
Yeah, well, historically, you have taught a lot of not just cooking classes, but like education about food, about food is medicine, and how it interfaces with your environment, and how it interfaces with individuals. But for myself, I can make it shorter. Yeah, I do. I have an acupuncture clinic. I do all of the traditional Chinese medicine techniques, acupuncture, herbs, cupping, Tui Nam, moxibustion, that kind of stuff. And then teach Taiji, Qigong, and meditation in my community. A bunch of different places. Oh man, I was thinking, since we keep using the word community,
Yeah.
This is my tree hugger coming out, and I'm sure that you guys will feel at home in California there, but
We will be embraced.
we need to expand the definition of community to not just us humans, but all the trees and the squirrels and the foxes. And I mean, that's who I consider my community. We're all here, right? We all have to try to take care of one another.
Yes,
including the humans. Yeah.
absolutely.
And since we're defining terms, I appreciate you bringing that up. Community, yes. How about connection? How do you define connection? And then maybe center. And what does it mean, to people who may not who may have not been exposed, to Qigong and Tai Chi and these concepts that that are in the back of our minds when we use the word connection and when we use the word center.
Oh man, that's that is a good question. I don't think you can can't answer what connection is without defining disconnection.
Okay.
And disconnection is really kind of an illusion, right? Like we're all connected. And it doesn't matter if you don't think you're connected or if you don't feel you're connected, you still are. It's just, you may have these other processes going on in your mind or in your body or in your environment, whatever, that kind of overrides that. But we are connected, like it or not. Which is why, when you realize that, you don't have a choice but to try to improve your community, right? Because it improves yourself. It's the only way that you can be healthy as an individual, is to invest in trying to improve the health and the wellness of your community, including the humans and the plants and animals and the water and the whole environment.
I would say to bring it back to Tai Chi and Qigong, Erik teaches a lot of classes where, this is somebody's like first Tai Chi or Qigong class, and the developing, getting people to develop their sense of like their physical center seems to help them develop their sense of their energetic center. So he will have them do centering exercises where they're feeling their center of gravity. and they're kind of looking internal, and they're kind of connecting with their breath, and they're kind of just building awareness that they do, like Erik was saying, that they do have that connection, and just coming back to feeling the connection, waking up to the connection. And yeah, sometimes we have to start with just getting people to connect with their actual center of gravity,
Yeah,
like
physical
their
center
physical
of gravity.
center. Yeah. And
if
then
you can feel
just start
your
planting seeds.
yeah, if you can
Right.
feel your physical center, then it's really, I mean, it's the same as your mental center, your spiritual center. It's kind of the same.
Right. All those
Awesome.
layers of regulation of the body, the 5 different layers. I keep coming back to it in this
Right.
show, but body, breath, mind, chi, energy, and spirit. So yeah,
Right,
it's great
right.
that you can tap into one from the other, even if one is elusive.
Yeah.
to people.
Practice and an introduction and a leading them in practice. But ultimately it's their responsibility to develop that feeling and to practice that feeling and to stay aware, stay tapped into that connection, and then just keep practicing. People say, like, well, when will I just switch over? When will I get it? When will I get from point A to point B? When? And it's like,
Now
just keep practicing.
you're already there.
Just keep
Yeah.
practicing. Just keep doing it. Yeah, and that's not kind of represented well in our current culture of
Yeah.
just shut up and keep doing it.
Yeah. I mean, the master that practices 6 hours a day is doing the exact same thing as the beginner that is only practicing 10 minutes. It's the exact same thing.
In essence. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just want to remind listeners, you got to tune to KMUD, Redwood Community Radio, People Powered Radio, and you're listening to Chi Talks with Javi and Nona. Our guests today are Lindsey and Erik Hardin from Bentonville, Arkansas. They run the Ozark Integrative Medicine Clinic, and they just did a great job in defining connection, community, and center. And it's great to talk about these things with you guys. Definitely feel a sense of connection to in this thought space, actually. And I'm just trying to digest, things that you just said, and
Yeah.
repeat. I want to repeat it back and help people to understand connection. And I'm trying to think about what you said, because it was there were some things that yeah, kind of got a little bit of a light bulb there. You?
Yeah, and I think the awareness part, that
Oh yeah,
the
recognition.
the feeling, yeah, the understanding that the connection is always there. It's just innate, right? It's just a fact of life that's what we are. We are in connection with this world. We wouldn't be able to exist in some sense without that connection. But where is our awareness? Where is the mind? Where is the attention? And have we cultivated the feeling in order to be able to really truly reside in that connection and let it nourish us, I think.
I think it circles back also to the beginning of the show when you talked about the experience of pain and suffering and recognition as awareness, and connection as defined as recognition and leading someone to their physical center, recognizing that, sort of re-recognizing that, mental center and recognizing that, and then how pain and suffering are the opportunities to re-recognize and reconnect back to the body and the emotional, psychological landscape, mental landscape as well, all for the purpose of homeostasis, health, and wellness.
I'm wondering if I could bring our attention and awareness back to something that you mentioned, Lindsey. I think in the beginning of our talk, something about the whole approach to all of this process. So, Erik, we were talking about, how we're all suffering, the immense compassion that there is in that recognition that we have suffering, that it's hard to reconnect when we have pain and we have that suffering. And so, Lindsey, you mentioned that the approach that you have at your clinic is one of gentleness. And that really just rung a strong chord with me. And it reminded me of a time you and Erik and your family were at the retreat center, and it was like the first day of seminars. And, you're preparing this big meal for 40 people. And, and you mentioned something so simple. You're like, well, on the first day, I really like to create this meal that's very homey. And that gives people a sense that they're at home and really nourishes them. That's full and rich and welcoming. And I just was like, wow, like she's putting so much like heart and thought into this process, and is so gentle with these people who've traveled long distances. Maybe some of them have never been to a Qigong retreat before. Some of them have. A lot of them are returners, but it's just, travel and being away and all that. So that gentleness, I want to kind of go into that gentleness and maybe other ways that comes to light at your clinic. Like what do you do to help people relax into it and become more open to that process of that might not be so comfortable, pleasant right away?
Yeah. I think right off the bat, 10 years ago, we decided not to hang up any sort of symbols in the way that we decorated the space. It's pretty minimalist. We didn't put up anything that was going to communicate our financial status or beliefs or,
spiritual practices.
We wanted it to be clean and simple so that people weren't distracted, so that it could be anybody's space, that it wasn't our space that we were trying to impose on people coming in, so that they felt like it was a neutral space. People come in with all sorts of things, and it takes a while to unpack them. And so we didn't force any if I were to talk to a quote business person, they may say like,
we're doing it wrong.
You're doing it wrong. Yeah. But we didn't, I had gone to seminars where they tried to teach you like basically how to capture and hold these patients and extract their money, is what I heard in the seminars. Maybe that's what they were saying, but that's what I heard. And so we wanted to not do that. And we also didn't want to, we had started right off the bat with a no pressure policy. So you could call, you could ask questions, and you were never going to be pressured to make an appointment. That was really important to us because we didn't want to force anybody in the door. We wanted people to walk in that were ready. So we set all that up.
It's exactly the Taiji way. So we want to, not try to combat somebody or even correct somebody or that kind of thing, but you want to blend with their energy and then redirect it, right?
Yeah, and create the conditions so that someone is open and willing to walk in the door.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Collaboration.
Yeah. And then it's just little steps from there. It's just little steps. Sometimes people go fast, sometimes they go slow. But yeah, then we just treat them and train them. One thing that comes to mind is Erik does a lot of, elderly or senior classes for balance. And, we were talking about connection and where's your awareness. And so one example that we'll use is, a lot of these people, they're trying not to fall down. So how do you practice, how do you get the benefits of your Tai Chi and your Qigong so that you can go out into the world and practice it and get those benefits? And so, using the example of, okay, well, we're going to the grocery store. And so is your head on your shopping list, what's going to happen in the grocery store, how many people are going to be in there, is your head already in the store and shopping and there, or is your mind in each step you're taking and you're grounded and you got out of the car and you make sure to ground yourself? Where's your center of gravity? Or are you already in the store and you don't have that awareness? So having them build that awareness of their sense of gravity. And actually a lot of people in class, I've noticed them say, you had me like think about my feet. I've never like listened to my feet. And that's simple, but it's huge. And so they're that's light bulbs for them. And so then they're training that, and then that's Tai Chi, and then they're in Qigong, they're practicing that out in the world and getting those benefits. Where a lot of times people think, oh, I'm going to learn Tai Chi, I'm going to look really cool waving my arms around.
Yeah.
And so it takes a little while for them to kind of get that idea out of their head. But if they say, wow, what great benefit, I feel connected, I feel centered, I feel the benefits, then they really go quite a long way, and they're happy about it.
I just realized also when Nona was speaking that the fact that you guys come and volunteer and make all of the meals, and when you kind of take a step back and you see 3 times a day, like the mechanism, the engine running, you really get the sense that the kitchen is the heart of the home. I realized that in the summer seminars. And so I'd realized now that when you guys come and do that, it's really an act of your value system in community-based living. Yeah, it's great.
Totally. The kitchen is so soulful. And, it's,
We're prepping ours now. We're taking such
We
time
just-
to prep our heart, our
we-
little heart in our new little
we
space.
just moved, so we have a kitchen that's quite disheveled right now. But we're
cultivating it.
We're trying to hold it together. But yeah,
Well, you don't want congestive heart failure. You gotta get that.
Yes.
right. I think we're taking time with it because it is that special place, and I really want it to be clean and feeling good energetically. So I do want to return back to the topics that we've been covering and maybe weave in a little bit more of the energy lens back into it, because we've been talking about it in terms of health and wellness, and that's a big part of the work that we do. But how does that relate to the energy? Now, Lindsey, you mentioned it, like you just breezed over a little bit, but you talked about how in your class you talked about the energy aspect of the food and how they would possibly feel from the meals that you're creating. And then also, Erik, maybe you can touch on the approach to pain through energy, maybe the intersect of those things there.
Go ahead.
Okay. So yeah, that's kind of like Erik was saying, about connection. Like the food energetics are there no matter if you believe it or not. And sometimes it does feel a little, strange, like I'm speaking a different language when I'm trying to explain to people like food energetics. Like some food are cooling, some food are causing dampness for you and causing this problem, because we are in a culture right now where it's like you can't really scientifically prove some of that, and I think that maybe at some point they could, but it's just not really being studied. And so I'm asking people to kind of go on faith by that, and then kind of what I just lean into as far as feeling the energetics of food for people is like, how do you feel? Practice, how do you feel? And one thing out at the seminars, I had several people come up to me, and a lot of times I was cooking like very recognizable food. You know, I mean, we did meatloaf, you know, turkey meatloaf. We didn't do anything, you know, kind of woo-woo with with the food. I mean, a lot of it was familiar. I mean, sometimes we even did, you know, spaghetti. And so, but people would come up to me and they'd be like, man, I cook this same stuff at home, but when I eat it, when you cook it, it feels different. I'm losing weight. I don't feel groggy. Like, what are you doing? And so it's hard to explain. I get a little like, oh, I don't really know what to say, because I'm like, well, I am doing it differently, but it's not anything special. But I mean, Noni, you probably noticed, I probably mentioned, like, I don't bang my spoon on the edge of the pot. You know, I make sure that I'm quiet and centered while I'm in the kitchen and cooking. And sometimes it was hard. We're under the wire. You know how I didn't like to be late.
You impart that vibration into your.
So yeah, and I
cuisine.
used a lot less oil and a lot less frantic frying heat energy, and I cut down on the salt a lot more than I think a lot of people would, so that I was leaning on the natural energetics of the food we were preparing, and a lot of it was from the garden too, and just the chi of those vegetables from that garden are just different. People noticed, and they couldn't put their finger on it. They're like, I ate spaghetti, but I don't feel like I ate spaghetti. What's going on here? So I kind of just love that, and it's just an awareness. My children haven't ever eaten fast food, and especially Ash would ask, you know, oh, my friends at school, they're like really excited about this particular fast food, and like, you know, what's going on? And he, you know, we drive past it, he would see it, and he would start asking questions like, why don't we eat that? And, you know, it came back for us to food energetics and to, you know, just that whole, what all is going on. And that, you know, that we don't participate. You know, I'm not going to label it as bad food. I'm not going to label it as, you know, wrong. You know, it's a different, you know, culture. And it's just, we don't do it. We don't participate in that. It doesn't mean that my kids have never had fried chicken or French fries, but it's just
Because you
been
cook them at
different.
home.
Yeah. It's just been different, a different way that we do it. So we do consider the ripple effect of, you know, our food choices, and that does change you over time, energetically. So there's that, and then there's also, you know, just the food energetics that takes a while to unpack. And I just tell people, especially in classes, well, just practice, just try it. Start building awareness, start going to your farmer's market, start looking into where your food comes from. There's always a good, better, best choice, and make, you know, a better choice than you have been making, and try to make the best. And different people have different limitations on, you know, what they're able to seek in food. And I never want to shame anyone and tell them that they have to eat, you know, expensive, you know, pure, perfect food, because that's just not, and not everybody can do that. But you can always make, you know, a better choice, and you can make the best choice for yourself. And that has a lot to do with food energetics too. And I think that's a good place to start.
Yeah.
And I just want to remind listeners, you got it tuned to K-Mud. This is Chi Talks, and we're about to complete the show. This is Javi and Nona, and our guests today are Erik and Lindsey Hardin from Bentonville, Arkansas, who run the Ozark Integrative Medicine Center, Clinic.
Yeah, clinic.
Yeah.
And so I think the other part of the energy tie-in question, Erik, was to you and the work that you do in the clinic. And particularly, I think I'm curious about how the energetics and the pain, exploring pain, go together. And yeah.
Energetics of pain. Yeah. So, yeah, just real basically, you know, pain is kind of synonymous with stagnation in traditional Chinese medicine. Stagnation means that whatever, it's not moving like it's supposed to. You have, like every tissue in your body has a certain level of conductivity, right? Your bone, it can conduct mechanical vibration, and it conducts heat, and it conducts white blood cells, and it conducts nerve impulses, and you have all of this kind of circulation. And stagnation is just kind of a metaphor for that not functioning normally. And so energetically, and it's not just the energy, but the material. The material stagnates also. The blood, you have inflammation, could be, and I mean, there's a lot of different kinds of pain too, right? There's physical pain, and there's emotional pain, and there's, different kinds of things. But we've been talking a lot about like awareness and recognition and things like that. And, my strategy is to try to help to restore the normal circulation. And sometimes people are holding on to that pain for one reason or another. Like if you get injured, if you injure your arm, for example, then you may need to hold it still to prevent further injury, or you may need to tighten that tissue in order to prevent further injury. But that can become kind of a habit when you do that for a while. And then after, kind of the initial shock or the initial trauma, if you continue to tighten, then it restricts the healing. It slows down the healing. And so, you want to try to restore the movement. You want to try to restore the circulation. And here's the part that is sometimes challenging for people. Like, it doesn't matter if you ignore the pain or if you embrace the pain, it still hurts. It doesn't matter if you hold it still or if you move it around, it still hurts. If you have pain, then it's there, and you just have to kind of deal with that. And I think the best strategy for dealing with pain is to, number one, recognize the pain, because the pain, like the solution to the pain, is encoded within the pain. If you're willing to look at it. And so, if it's a sharp pain and a severe injury, it could be an emotional injury, it could be a physical injury, then you have to treat it very gingerly, right? You may have to use some very, very subtle kind of even energetic, massage, just some very, very subtle things. Or, if you just have some like minor soreness, then it might feel good to just rub it. You might want to rub it kind of assertively, but just kind of recognizing what that pain is asking for, and trying to provide that, trying to provide the conditions for the circulation to restore.
That's great. I really like the fact that we're talking about pain. Physical. A lot of times it's physical pain. People get quite scared of it. I would say. Have you experienced that?
Yeah.
I remember Nona and I often, we talk about how, hey, let's make the pain our friend. Make the pain your friend. And what illuminated to me just now is like blending, the idea of blending with the pain and the energy and the information that is coming when you can be willing to open and step into it.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. People are afraid of suffering, and I'm afraid of suffering. I mean,
yeah.
we're all
Right.
afraid of suffering, right? But if you're suffering, it doesn't matter if you're afraid or not. You're still suffering either way, So you kind of, at some level, you kind of have no choice but your choice is to prolong it. You can kind of prolong the stagnation, or you can kind of move into it and see what needs to happen to resolve it.
Definitely. had a moment of pain, these past 2 days. Even I did a little bit too much pickaxing and to create a garden at our new home, and I had a lot of pain between my shoulder blades. And I hadn't been practicing Qigong for about a week or so because we were moving and this and that. And I noticed my mind having aversion to the pain, not wanting it to be there, or then having fear that if I moved in a certain way, it would flare up again. And that like creating a little bit of a whirlwind in my mind, on my mind level. So then there was like a little bit of a franticness happening so that you can't address, and that creates like a freezing action. Like you just want to be still instead of like, meditating and finding ways to reconnect with that. And I think, Erik, when you said that the information for how to address the stagnation is in the stagnation itself, that's really amazing, that you have to go into it to gain that information that those sensations are trying to tell you. I think Javi talks about it as oftentimes you have whispers of the body, but then there's other times where the body is kind of yelling at you
The
because you
body
haven't
whispers until it has to yell and scream at you. And
at that
it's
point.
our job to listen to the whisper and make the monitor and modulate as needed.
And at the point where it's yelling, it's so hard to be able to be in a mental state where you can address that pain on your own. And I think it helps to have someone else's help or guidance, oftentimes if you don't already have a practice, until you build up your own ability to reside in those really intense moments, I think.
I think you're right, Nona. Yeah, that's part of what we're educating people is, sometimes when, I triage everybody on the phone, I talk to everybody, and I can hear, told Erik, I can hear in their voice if they're in pain or not. And sometimes they're very cheery and professional on the phone. They'll schedule the appointment, but I can hear that they're uncomfortable just in their voice. And a lot of times I won't probe for a lot of detail on the phone. I'll just say, well, let's get you right in and try to get you some relief. Because at that time, they don't have those tools in their toolbox yet to work through all that. So, a lot of times it is, let's try to get some relief. And then as they come in more, even if they say, well, I feel a lot better, we still encourage them to come in for a few more visits, because we do want to, help them to unpack how they got in that situation, and self-care, and start building that awareness so that they can heal, and not just pop in for the magic needle and get the relief and then keep running, keep cranking the wheel. That the people who will listen, to start guiding them into changing their lifestyle, and they're building their awareness so that they don't find themselves in that situation, or if they do, they can better handle it, give them some more tools.
Well, we've come to the end of our show, and it's been really great speaking with the both of you. Can you please maybe provide our listeners a way that they might be able to find more information on the both of you?
Sure. Yeah, we are on Facebook, Ozark Integrative Medicine. We have a website, Ozark, OZARK, acupuncture.com. And I have a Instagram page called Soul Kitchen Project, and soul is spelled SOL.
Great pictures of all the food that she cooks.
Oh my gosh, I was literally drooling when I went to your website. It was amazing.
Well, guys, any final closing words? What are the words of advice you're giving people these days, and what's important to you, and what is it really that you want to share from the heart, to listeners and people out there?
Yeah, mine's pretty simple. Just try to find your center, stay in your center, and just keep practicing. You're already doing it. Just keep practicing.
One time I got a tea, and underneath the cap there was a little message printed. It was like a little fortune, and this little fortune stuck with me always. But it said happiness is when what you say, what you think, and what you do are the same.
All right.
All right.
Well, guys, thank you so much again for taking time to sit with us today. And we're really looking forward to seeing you guys.
I know,
Yeah,
so
me too.
excited.
So you have a great day, and we'll close it off here. This is Javi and Nona with Chi Talks on People Powered Radio, Community Radio, KMUD. And if you want to contact us with any questions, comments, talkingqi@gmail.com, talkingqi@gmail.com. Thank you again. Thank you, Nona. Again.
Thank you. Have a beautiful day, everyone.
Bye, guys.